Payal.
Mr. Boombastic.
That's all you could come up with. The first thing to say.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Go ahead. I know you. Let's steer this thing. All right. So, welcome to the Do Something podcast, episode number 1.
That's your cold opening?
That is. I am here with Patrick Harris.
That's a cold open.
Dr. Hold on. Let me introduce you. Dr. Dan Lyles.
I mean, I can just introduce myself, but that's fine. That's how you feel.
So Dan, why? Let's go here since you're here with this intro of yours
And this energy.
Why this energy? Why are you podcasting with us today in the Do Something podcast, episode 1?
For the same reason, I don't try to make a whole cake inside of a single 2-cup measuring cup. Is that you have to just make stuff and put it in the bin and mix it. You have to make a 2-gallon product with a 1-cup mind. So this is just a way of putting stuff out there that I don't know if will ever go anywhere, but you can't get anywhere without getting somewhere. So
Boom.
Bam.
I like it. Pat, what you
Bam
got?
diggity.
Why are you on this podcast?
Same shit, man. I mean, it's really the same thing, right? It's do something. Our brand ethos here at Collective Effort is, in fact, do something. And it is exactly as Dan said. We got to figure out ways to make stuff happen somehow, some way. And the best way to do that is just by doing something. So this is one of those very many things that we do.
Yes.
We're documenting us doing stuff for the people and for ourselves.
Right.
And the future us.
That's beautiful. And I like being on this show with you guys already.
for the people, we're going to do for the people. I'm going to focus on just doing. And if the people can enjoy it later, that'll be great. But
yeah, I feel like people won't listen to this thing until after I feel like just like the marker of history and time, and remember that time where we were struggling with the thing. Let's kind of just go back into our info bucket of things and just pull this up and really kind of just laugh at ourselves, but also be inspired by that younger, energetic type of us.
Yeah, it's like a proto cartoon, right? Like a pilot show. I love watching pilots for TV shows, because you can watch the pilot and then try to watch something in the middle of the series and just see the distance, because the pilot's just to prove a concept might work,
right? And
then you refine it, you discover it. Turns out you can't rent an elephant every episode, so you're like, all right, so it was gotta be something else, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you just only focus on, I can only write the show middle of season 3, that show never gets written.
So I got a question for you. What do you hate about podcasts? Let's do that. Let's go there.
I love podcasts, first of all. I think that podcasts are a great way to create information, to interact with people. There's a great idea of parasociality, that people begin to feel like they're in the room with you. It's building kind of relationship. What I don't like is that there is a lot of pressure to produce an end product when painting a picture.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of interim craft. You got to give people space just to work it out and figure it out.
Right.
And in a very sort of goal-oriented, product-oriented society, we often don't think there's room for a 3-hour conversation
with no finality to it.
Yeah, it's just
I think that was a
lot.
lot. I think that was a lot of our concern, or a lot of our back and forth, and why we kind of stunted our growth in doing this maybe months ago, where we would be well, it has to have an ending and it has to have a solution at the end. But I truly believe that might be the case for if our viewers want that, if they just want us to work a thing through and then maybe come up with a solution for them. But then maybe there is a space where it's just hey, all right, you figure it out from here. We've worked out the tough part, maybe untangled the wires a bit.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
People listen to Larry King because they think Larry King's going to solve the issue of tax fraud in America. In an interview, it's just no, it's just we're going to talk about it. We're going to see what happens.
Right.
Maybe it's helpful to you.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Pat, why do you you was going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to add. I mean, I think another thing too is that as a part of being a part of this team, we're all teachers and stuff too at the same time in a sense. So I'm I think a large problem that we kept running up against was that we were all all right, well, how do you add the value? And to us adding the value was always like a product or like call to action or something like that, right? And that's just out of like the nature of like us being who we are, like trying to be solution oriented and all the things and intentional and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, like just doing a thing for the sake of doing it is a value added in and of itself. And yeah, long overdue. I'm excited to be doing this right now.
Beautiful.
Yeah, right now I'm learning about color theory and learning about like recoloring and retouching images. And while I'm learning stuff from this lecture about it, I'll just like pause it and I'll just take an image I can find really fast and I'll just do you think he's talking about this thing.
Right.
I save all of those. I have these huge lists of like, color example 2A-A-B-A.2. And the point is so that when I'm eventually a little more comfortable, I can look back at kind of where I've gone. I can kind of like play around and say, oh, okay, I see. I was trying to do this at the time, but I didn't know how to do this thing yet.
Yeah.
And you need that kind of
documentation.
Yeah. You need to see, in order to know you're moving, you need some reference markers. Yeah. Otherwise, you're doing stuff, but are you going anywhere? You're getting anywhere? You have no idea.
Maybe this is just our journal.
Yeah, a lot of.
I'm totally for that.
Yeah, a lot of podcasts, a lot of blogs just begin as people's like personal journalist journals or research journals, and they become a thing. You just don't see that. You just ignore that first part.
That's beautiful. I like how this is all coming together in the first episode. I feel like we won't really be hitting our stride until like the 7th. And like really kind of getting a pulse of what the community is needing, but also what we're willing to be transparent about. Because I think certain things should be kept in a very safe space, and like not really released until it's like a full idea. What do you think about that, Pat?
I think yes and no. I think there are some ideas that need to just be out there in the world, and I think there are some ideas that like, all right, let me just like finish the thing. But those are ideas, sometimes that's like ego-driven stuff. Yeah.
I'm selfish I'm gonna be selfish with this idea.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like the thing that you're probably thinking is the life-changing thing that needs to be sat on is probably in existence somewhere. You just haven't done the research yet. So like,
there's one thing I like about Pat. Pat will be like, "All right, I know how to do this thing. The link is here. If you want to know how to do it too, it's right there." It all from A to B, not like just A, B, C. No, A to Z.
Here's the whole thing. I'd like to make it easy for people to like, catch up and, so we can, if for nothing else, so that way we are all like talking from the same place or at least a similar place, so I'm not like talking to a wall about like this new thing that I learned that is probably going to turn into a thing that we're going to do as an organization.
Or you could go back, into your documentation and say, see, I already posted about this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a huge accountability.
Yeah, I mean, as per my last email, as I think is going to be like the great quote of this era, as everyone's online all the time now, as email is a dominant way to communicate. Everyone has gotten in the habit of being like, let me just send out this like blank email so that there's like a receipt, a timestamp about when this happened for plausible deniability down the road. It's a part of our culture now on certain levels, but there's a piece of it that I think we struggle with, and everyone's going to struggle with initially. It's like you become very self-aware of it initially. Yeah. A lot of my training comes out of like anthropology and sociology, and one thing you learn about interviews is there's just a window at the beginning where you're just going to ask the same questions over and over and over, and you kind of don't even care what they say because you have to just wear out their initial social defenses against it. People don't want to tell you the truth. They want to tell you the truth, right? But they have to get out of their own way. They have to say the mission statement in the bold, and then you let them do it for a while, and you say, okay, yeah, but what do you really do? You're like, oh yeah, we do this completely different thing. Right. I don't think it's being dishonest. I just think that we invested a lot of energy into presenting ourselves in a particular way, and what journaling, documenting is really about giving yourself some space to put that aside and say like, well, what's really happening? Right. The days that feel like you did nothing and you realize, oh, I did a lot, but I didn't do a lot of presentation of myself. And the days where you feel like you did so much and you're like, no, I really just convinced people that I was me all day, right? Which is work, right? But it's a different kind of work than the kind of creative work we're talking about.
It's that back end work, man. I definitely struggle with that personally a lot, right? In my ever consistent feeling of like I haven't done enough, And it is very much like you said, I haven't presented this thing that I've been working on enough to people to consume, essentially. But because, I mean, like, y'all know, my life, you know, is just like
he likes to
finding
be. You like to
answers.
be in the dark, but
I
then
love it. But also at the same
you got to
time,
come out
I
and
beat
play.
myself up for it, you know, from being in the dark all the time. But just as an aside too, just like, you know, super relevant to this, the back end work. And the visual, you know, being able to just like see it, hear it, consume it in a way has always been really impactful for me. Just like as a creator, right? Specifically, like one of my favorite things to do, I'm sure this is one of your favorite things to do too, is like go watch the behind the scenes of like our favorite movies and things like that.
Yeah.
Like as a black person in the world of media, trying to figure out how to become, you know, the best level of media professional I can be, like, there's not a ton of opportunities for you to like figure out those answers, those systems, the equipment, all that kind of things, you know, all those things that like, you know, take you to the next level that we're trying to get at. Like all that stuff isn't super visible unless you're, you know,
paying to play.
Yeah. Unless you got, you know, a bunch of money or a bunch of access to people that are in that world, right? You know, at that level. And there aren't a ton of, you know, well, I mean, there's way more now, you know, shout out to Lena Waithe and Donald Glover and Issa Rae and all them cats. Like, you know, black people have been making their way in media at that level over the last like 5 years. But like, that's only been like really, you know, like the last 5 years that it's been like a big wave like this. Yeah. And so like the documentation of these kinds of things for us to experience on the back end is such a huge important piece of like my development.
Yeah, man, I be sitting back. I know we do this a lot. We share a lot of like intel and like, see how they did that. That's awesome. Like I love just the storytelling of it all. And, you know, I'm long-winded and I sometimes rant on Facebook or Instagram and I'm not able to like fully write out my full thought. I love the fact that like maybe this platform is there to, you know, we can get a full thought out without feeling like, well, damn, I didn't word that correctly. And so now my words are going to be taken, or my tone is going to be taken out of context. And so I think this is a perfect platform for people who just want to be better understood.
Yeah, I love drafts for that reason. You know, I love the big splash piece artwork, but I'm that person who I collect screenplays. I collect behind the scenes stuff. One of my most prized possessions I have a digital copy of what's called the Bat Bible, and it's the document you would give the animators for the old Paul Dini 90s Batman animated series TV show. And it was a binder full of information about every little minor detail about like the setting, the characters, how characters talk, how they joke, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. You could see not only the initial draft as they are laying out this, you know, if you watch a modern action cartoon, you're watching someone who probably was deeply inspired by this show, but you're watching them work out what the visual language is going to be in a way that it's instructive for you as, you know, working on your own thing to say like, oh yeah, you do sort of just need enough of a sketch of an idea, and you have time to sort of refine it and to develop it and to come back to it in a way that when we're very kind of production oriented, you're only focused on like, how do I get the person external to me who I have no access to their thoughts? How do I get them to respond in a specific way? Yeah. Instead of focusing on like, okay, what am I doing? What do I like here? What makes sense to me?
I think that's beautiful. Man, the science behind, I'm thinking when you're talking through this, I'm thinking about the classes that I would teach for our young people. Imagine if, you know, they really took to this podcast, or maybe, you know, we're using these, you know, tools and these mediums to just really connect with these young people in a way that's we're not infringing on their personal space. We're just a like click away of like enlightenment. And there's so much information out there. There's so many like ways to skin a cat. And so I'm just inspired by our ability to just say, you know what, let's invest. Let's invest in a podcast center. Somebody's going to want to come and talk. And I think how we pivoted just in like the last 2 months is like, wait, maybe we should be, you know, ushering in that conversation. And so like, I think that's a powerful ability. And so I thank you guys for wanting to be in this process and kind of pulling this thing together, because I feel like this is going to spark other people's ideas and feelings about how they want to articulate their art, their passions, their movements, their processes, and their systems. And I think the sooner we can get on the same page, as soon as we can better understand who our leaders are, who those movers and shakers are, I think we'll be able to move things along much quicker.
Yeah, it's a huge part of just like human history, right? To be able to document and tell your own story. I mean, that's kind of how the world's taken shape, in the way that it has. And so it's just like, you take a look at what's happening right now, even in the world. It's 2020. There's, a race revolution again, and pandemics and all that kind of stuff. And it's like the importance for people, especially our people, to be able to tell their own stories and create our own narrative in the moment in history where it's most important, as we've not traditionally been able to do such a thing. It's so readily available now that we would be doing ourselves a huge disservice by not. That's why we were out filming at protests. That's why, we're doing interviews, for people making really great things and trying to help create the new foundation. Because at the end of the day, like, storytelling is far longer lasting than, most systems that currently exist.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and much like what we're going to figure out soon is this might also just go in a, episode 0 archive that no one ever sees, because the other method is learning not just the method of delivering content, but method of actually dealing with it. I think people need to realize that you're going to make a lot of stuff that no one's ever going to look at, and it's not wasted time. It got you somewhere. And like to young people, I think young people are currently working out, like, what of my stuff does everyone get to see? What's just for me? And understanding that, like, that's fundamentally, that is as fundamental a question of storytelling as is, diction or, imagery or any of those fancy terms. Just like, what do you do with the material you produce?
Man. Well said.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah. Well, listen, I thank you guys for being a part of this first episode. I hope this inspires anybody listening to want to come in and maybe chat with us, or even just do your own show. Like, I think that's a part of this piece that also I want to like push in this last couple of minutes, where I just want people to be excited about listening to a thing and not taking it too seriously, but also like engaging with us and following all the things that we're doing, because we are working. I know sometimes it seems like at Collective Effort we are crime fighting everywhere else and not pouring back into home base, but we are definitely at work. And so we appreciate you guys tuning in to our first episode. Follow us on all platforms: Instagram, Facebook. We have a YouTube.
Yep, YouTube is already up. We got Twitch at Collective Effort TV. Collective Effort TV show coming out starting July 8th. Woo! 6 o'clock on Wednesdays, highlighting local creative community and small businesses, trying to do workshops and performances, giving people a place and space to show their ass.
Show your ass.
Not literally though, please.
Yeah, please. Yeah,
please don't do that.
Hey, live your best life.
I mean, yeah, if you want to do that,
show your spiritual ass.
Yeah,
your spirit.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining the podcast. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.
Peace.